Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Getting Away is Deadly by Sara Rosett, narrated by Gail Shalan. Chapter 1. Monday. "Now if you'll follow me, we'll go down to the crypt," the tour guide said. I let our small group flow past me as I waited for my best friend, Abby Dovanowski, to catch up with me. You know, if everything had gone according to my plan, right now Mitch and I would be lounging on a private beach on St. John working on our tans. But instead, I'm about to tour a crypt. Kind of ironic, isn't it? Abby pawed through her huge purse and didn't look up as she said, "Why do you think things would go according to your plan?" You're right. I forgot about Murphy's Law as it applies to military spouses. If you plan it, they will ruin it. Well, at least we've got fraught, Abby said as she unzipped a compartment inside her purse and dug around it. Yeah, where would we be without fraught? I asked. At home in Vernon, Washington, where it's raining, again, for the record-breaking 35th day in a row. I checked the weather this morning. I guess you're right. I'll take Washington, D.C.'s humidity and sun along with fraught over rain and being at home. We shared a smile over the acronym of the class our husbands were taking. The military has to have an acronym for everything. So foreign reciprocity officer training was shortened to fraught. Originally, Mitch and I had planned to go on a Caribbean vacation after he returned from his Middle East deployment. I had the airline tickets, a room reserved at a secluded beachfront cottage, the grandparents lined up to watch our daughter Livy, and a reservation at a kennel for our dog Rex, where he'd be so fawned over and catered to that he probably wouldn't even miss us. Then Mitch returned from his deployment and learned in his absence he'd been volunteered to attend a week-long training school. Mitch could have begged and pleaded and tried to get out of it, but since his squadron commander had hand-picked Mitch to attend the school, he felt like he had to go. The fact that he'd forgotten to turn in his leave paperwork had an impact on the decision, too. So what was I going to do? Cancel each carefully planned detail? Nope, I exchanged my airline tickets and mentally kissed my days at the beach goodbye. The only redeeming thing about the whole vacation switch, besides the fact that the military was picking up the tab for the hotel room, was that Abby's husband, Jeff, had been picked to be the alternate for the fraught program, and he had to attend as well. Since the trip fell during Abby's spring break from teaching 3rd grade, she'd promptly made airline reservations too. Abby repositioned her purse on her shoulder. "Do you have anything to eat? You've always got chocolate. I'm starving." "Of course I've got chocolate, but we can't eat in the capital," I whispered back as we navigated around another clump of people with their heads tilted back to gaze at the dome mural. I always had Hershey's Kisses. I was addicted to them. "Why not?" "Abby, this is the rotunda. We can't eat in here." The chamber echoed with the voices of the guides and the shuffle of feet as tourists made their way around the circular room, studying the oil paintings. "I'm starving," Abby repeated. "I have to eat. I'm pregnant. It's my right." After struggling for months, Abby was finally pregnant, and she was playing it for all it was worth. It was a bit different for me, even though I was pregnant too. Life with a preschooler tended to make everything else fade into the background. Sometimes I'd gotten so wrapped up in parenting Livy, our almost 2-year-old, that I'd actually forgotten I was pregnant again. Well, except for the nausea, that's hard to ignore, but thankfully that stage seemed to be over. I rubbed my slightly protruding belly. I hoped this mini vacation would help me tune into my pregnancy. I felt a tad guilty that I didn't think about our little Nathan more. Abby looked at my purse with a longing expression. "Come on, why can't we eat in here? The sense of history, the artwork." I nodded at the center of the rotunda as we walked. "Presidents lie in state here. It would be disrespectful." "Yeah, you're right." Abby conceded. As we reached the lower level of the Capitol, Abby and I merged back with our sightseeing group, made up of several Air Force wives from different bases whose husbands were also in Washington, D.C. for fraught training. Our guide said, 40 Doric columns of brown sandstone support the rotunda directly above this room. Does anyone know what the star at the center of the floor represents? The gaze of our Capitol tour guide, a young woman in her early 20s, roved over our group as she tried to avoid making eye contact with the petite, dark-headed woman planted directly in front of her. The rest of us were clueless, so our tour guide said, Nadia, I bet you know. You've known everything else. Oh, I do! Nadia bounced with excitement, and her dark hair bobbed against her cheekbones. It's the exact center of Washington, D.C. Her Capitol brochure crumpled as she squeezed it. The very heart of Pierre l'Enfant's grand plan. The diagonals that divide the city into quadrants originate from right here. Our tour guide gave a perfunctory smile. That's correct. As you can see, there aren't any tombs in this crypt, and it has never been used as a burial chamber. It was intended to be the final resting place for George Washington, but his family buried him at Mount Vernon instead. Today, the space is used for exhibits. Feel free to take your time looking around. This concludes the tour. I'll leave you to explore. She gave us directions on how to exit the Capitol, and we dispersed around the room. Nadia headed to the gift shop, which was really just a few glass display cabinets stocked with postcards and touristy items set up on one side of the room. Abby and I set off on a slow circuit of the room. I loved reading the small print inside the exhibit cases. Abby indulged me until another member of our group, Irene, joined us. She pushed her subtly highlighted blonde bangs off her forehead and checked her watch. Shouldn't we be going? Where is everyone? Irene had taken on the role of den mother. Abby and I knew Irene because she and her husband, Grant, had been stationed at the same base as Abby and I, Greenlee, in Washington State, until a few months ago when Grant got a new assignment to Alaska. Irene shoved a plastic bag of postcards and souvenir books into her massive tote bag, which was emblazoned with a flag and the words, Military Spouse, the toughest job you'll ever love. She pulled the lapels of her black wash-and-wear travel blazer together over her busty figure and looked around the room. Nadia's in line to check out, and there's Gina leaning on a pillar. Irene checked her watch again. I'll go round everyone up. Don't you think Wellesley will be waiting for us outside by the reflecting pool by now? Wellesley Warner was our tour guide for the D.C. area. She'd handed us off at the Capitol to their expert guides and told us where to meet her when the tour was over. Some companies had tour programs for spouses who accompanied their significant others to conferences and training programs. Not the military. An expense like that would be an easy target for complaints about waste, fraud, and abuse. Can't have our tax dollars going to entertain the wives. So our group had pooled our money and hired Wellesley, the owner of Inside Look Tours, a boutique tour company specializing in small tour groups for people who didn't want to spend their time on a bus lumbering from one site to another. Irene bustled everyone together, and we emerged from the Capitol on the west side. We paused at the balustrade to take in the view down the mall, the grassy open space lined on each side with the Smithsonian museums. Straight ahead, the Washington Monument rose vibrantly white against the blue sky. I knew from studying the map earlier in the day that the Lincoln Memorial was directly beyond the Washington Monument. I love the symmetry of this place, I said. Abby snorted. You would. You like everything lined up in a row, neat and squared away. Gina Travato was on the other side of me. Abby noticed her puzzled look and leaned over to explain. Ellie's a professional organizer. She helps people get things in order. Her business is called Everything in Its Place. Gina smiled. Too bad we aren't at the same base. You could experiment on me, since I'm chronically unorganized. If you could help me, you could help anyone. She turned back to the view and said, It is awesome, though. Even someone as messy as I am can appreciate good lines when I see them. What do you do? You're in Oregon, right? I asked. I'm a social worker at a hospital in Portland. Gina leaned her bony arms on the balustrade. She looked a bit like she'd been run through a wringer and had all the color and contour squeezed out of her body. She was tall and flat-chested, with gray eyes, pale skin, and long, straight hair that was somewhere between a washed-out blonde and a dingy brown. The only exception to the linear lines of her body was her slightly upturned nose. We're not that far away from you. We're at Vernon, in eastern Washington state. At least for now, I said. Gina turned toward me. Due for a move? Yes. Well, not for the next 6 months or so, but we should be hearing pretty soon. We've turned in the dream sheet, and now we're waiting. Dream sheet. That's an accurate name if there ever was one, Gina said with a laugh. A dream sheet was a form on which Mitch listed the bases where he'd like to be stationed. It was called a dream sheet because that's what it was. Basically, a dream. The Air Force pretty much sent you where they wanted you. If it happened to coincide with your dream sheet, you were lucky. Gina continued. Not that you're going to get it, but what did you put down as your first choice? Hawaii. We know it's a long shot, but after the winters in Washington state, we're ready for sunshine. Of course, we'll probably get one of the other bases down the list, like one in Kansas or Georgia. Abby and her husband are up, too. We're hoping we'll get the same base again. Okay, everyone! A loud, perky voice rang out. Time for a snappy! Not another picture, Gina muttered. She's gotta have taken at least 50 already. Nadia must have sensed a mutiny brewing because she said, Come on, just one more. Last group picture of the day, I promise. I just have to have this for my scrapbook. All right, then let's get it over with, Gina said. We all swung around with our backs to the view, and Nadia recruited another tourist to take our picture. We squished together and grimaced. Now that wasn't so bad, was it? Nadia asked as we went down the steps to the mall. I heard Gina mutter, Not if it shuts you up. We made our way down to the Capitol reflecting pool, through the beautifully landscaped grounds. I wondered how much money was spent on maintaining the grounds. Did it rival the defense budget? Where is Wellesley? Irene asked, scanning the clumps of people gathered around the pool. Abby plopped down on a low wall and I joined her. I pulled some energy bars and several Hershey's Kisses out of my Coach backpack purse and handed them to Abby. Ah, nourishment. She ripped open the bar and downed it in 3 bites. I offered a bar to Gina, but she shook her head. Abby crumpled the wrapper and said, You have to teach me all this mom stuff, like carrying food in your purse. I'm going to be so toast as a mom. You're going to do fine, I said, and pulled out my cell phone. I turned it off during the tour. 2 messages. The first one was from my parents' number. They were taking care of Livy during my week away with Mitch. I punched the numbers for voicemail, and I tensed, waiting to hear Livy crying. To put it mildly, she'd had some issues with separation anxiety. I'd even debated canceling my trip several times. My mom's voice came on the line. Hi, honey. No sounds of screaming in the background. I relaxed a little. My mom said, Sorry we missed your call. We were in the backyard. Livy loves the sandbox. She's doing great. We're having a wonderful time. Don't try to call us back for a while. We're going to the mall and the toy store. Bye. Okay. No crying. That was good. Wasn't it? I had a hard time believing Livy wasn't in the throes of separation anxiety, but my mom wouldn't lie to me. Would she? No, of course not. I just hoped all Livy's new toys and clothes would fit in our suitcase for our flight back to Vernon. I checked our little group. Irene paced to the edge of the reflecting pool and scanned them all for Wellesley. Abby and Gina were talking, and Nadia was busy snapping pictures of the Capitol Dome. A noisy group of teenagers swarmed around the pool. Their matching green t-shirts proclaimed they were from Crockett Middle School. We were engulfed in a chattering, giggling, hormone-energized crowd. My next voicemail came on the line, and I heard my sister-in-law's breezy voice. Hi, Ellie. Great to hear you guys are in town. Give me a call back and we'll get together. I know you said you had a free afternoon today, but I can't get away. I'm babysitting the little terror. She's sleeping now, thank goodness. But call me later. Abby saw me close my phone. So, did you hear from your sister-in-law? Are you getting together with her this afternoon? Yes, that was Summer, but she's babysitting for her landlady. Abby's eyebrows crinkled down into a frown. Isn't she a little old to be babysitting? I smiled. Not if you're babysitting for your landlord, who happens to be a high-powered Washington lobbyist. Summer figures it can't hurt her chances of getting a job when she graduates in May. Of course, that was assuming that Summer actually graduated. Mitch's youngest sister was as flighty as a hummingbird and changed majors as fast as some teens changed their shoes. I was amazed that her hodgepodge of college credits was going to add up to a degree in political science. Even with her short-lived detour to beauty school a few months ago, she'd pulled everything together this spring and was about to get her degree. The green mass of teenagers departed, and I recognized Wellesley, striding across the mall, her black skirt rippling around her legs. The name Wellesley conjured up images of headbands and preppy plaid. Wellesley had a headband, but it was a long white scarf that held back an explosion of dark corkscrew curls. Definitely no plaid for her. She went for the minimalist look. Today she wore a white sleeveless shirt and black flared skirt with tiny white embroidered dots. The ends of the scarf fluttered behind her. And what about Debbie? Has she checked in again? Abby asked. No, and she only called to make sure I made it to town. Abby leveled a look at me. And to make sure you had his phone number. And again to make sure you didn't lose it. And a third time to make sure you didn't forget to call him. I sighed and pulled out another Hershey's Kiss for me. I know she's being kind of annoying, but this is really important to her. She's always wanted to know what happened to her dad in Korea. It's a taboo subject. Her mom won't talk about it. No one else in her family will either. So this guy McAnally might be her only chance to find out about her dad. The whole situation is kind of sad. Since she couldn't get any details out of anyone in the family, she used to make up stories about what happened to him. Like that he died rescuing a family from a fire. Stuff like that. Once, she told me that she used to pretend that he wasn't really dead. That he'd somehow escaped death and was a spy, and it was too dangerous for him to return home. That is sad. But I still don't see why this guy who knew her dad doesn't just email her or call her, Abby said. I know, I don't understand it either. But I'm doing it as a favor for Debbie. She used to babysit me when I was a kid. I idolized her. She was my cool older cousin. She was nice to me at family get-togethers. She didn't make a big deal about me following her around and asking her 1,000 questions. She even sat at the little kids' table with me and my brother when she could have sat with the grown-ups. I popped the Hershey's Kiss in my mouth. Okay, but don't you think you're taking on too much? This is supposed to be a vacation, remember? Well, a vacation for us, even if Jeff and Mitch are working during the day, Abby said. I swallowed the chocolate and said, No, I have to see Summer. It would be rude not to stop in and see her while we're so close. And the thing with Debbie, that won't take long, a couple of hours. Just a quick meeting. Besides, it means a lot to her. It's the least I can do for someone who endured the rickety card table with me at Thanksgiving when she didn't have to. My phone rang in my hand. It was the same Texas area code as my parents' house, but not their number. "Ellie, it's Debbie. Did you meet him yet?" A mixture of expectation and fear mingled in my cousin's voice. "No, it's tomorrow," I said, as I watched Wellesley's approach. I raised my hand to wave at her. She'd almost reached the reflecting pool when a man joined her. He was shorter than her, and had black hair and heavy dark eyebrows. I lowered my arm and said to Debbie, "I'm going to meet McAnally at the hotel lobby tomorrow for breakfast. I promise I'll call you as soon as I talk to him." "Okay." Debbie's voice was strained. "I've waited 30+ years to find out what happened. I guess I can wait one more day." "How's Morgan?" I asked, as I watched the man and Wellesley. He pulled at the neck of his thin white t-shirt, which distorted the logo of a tree and the outline of the Capitol, above the words, "Capitol Landscaping." His dark green pants were paint-splattered and had muddy patches on the knees. He shifted his weight from one heavy work boot to the other as he talked rapidly to Wellesley. She shook her head and stepped away. He caught her arm and spun her back toward him. Debbie said, "Itchy and mortified. 13 is a difficult age without the chicken pox. I still can't believe she got it even after she'd had the shot. I'm so disappointed I can't be there. But I can't leave Morgan right now, and I can't wait any longer. I have to know what McAnally has to say." I divided my attention between Debbie's voice and Wellesley's encounter with the man. The rough way he jerked her arm worried me a bit, but she didn't seem to be bothered by it. She tugged her arm away, said a few terse words, and strode away from him. I tuned into the silence on the phone line and said cautiously, "Debbie, McAnally may not know anything." Debbie had such high hopes for this meeting, but I was afraid I might not bring much more back than photos of her dad's war buddy. The dark-headed man on the other side of the reflecting pool watched Wellesley walk away, his face under his heavy eyebrows expressionless. After a long moment, he turned and walked in the other direction. I expected him to join a landscape crew that was trimming bushes, but he passed them and continued on toward the Washington Monument. "Debbie, I've got to go. Our tour guide is here. I'll call you as soon as I talk to him, I promise." Wellesley spotted Irene, and they walked over together. Wellesley didn't seem shaken by the encounter with the man. She asked, "How's my band of mothers doing?" When she'd found out that morning that both Abby and I were pregnant, and that everyone else in the group either had kids or stepkids, she'd dubbed our group the Band of Mothers. It was a cute designation, but I thought she might not think we were so endearing after a few more days of constant pit stops for bathroom breaks, since one of the less exciting parts of being pregnant was the need to keep within the sight of a restroom at all times. She asked us about our tour of the Capitol and then said, "Your afternoon is your own. There is a nice exhibit at the Natural History Museum." She handed out brochures. "But we're going there tomorrow, so you might want to wait. If you want to see more of our founding documents, visit the National Archives across the mall." "I'm ready for a nap and room service," Abby said. "Okay, I'll head back too," I said. Maybe Abby was right, and I was trying to squeeze too much into my vacation itinerary. Lounging around the pool, or even lounging around my hotel room for a few hours completely alone, sounded pretty good. It might not be the Caribbean, but at least it was a 4-star hotel. "I think I'll go to the Library of Congress," Irene said as she studied the map. Gina and Nadia agreed they were ready for a break, so Wellesley gave Irene directions to the Library of Congress, and then walked with the rest of us back to the metro stop. The day had started out a little on the cool side, but now Washington's famous humidity was creeping in. By the time we reached the escalators and descended into the cave-like darkness of the metro stop, I was glad to get out of the sun. We inserted our metro cards into the machines connected to the turnstiles and pushed through them. Then we took the second escalator down to the platform. It was quiet, almost peaceful. under the barrel-vaulted ceiling, except for the occasional shrieks coming from two kids running in tight circles at the far end of the platform. They were so close to the edge it made me a little nervous. Nadia had her camera poised in front of her as she took more snappies, but she didn't ask us to pose for her, which was a good thing since I thought Gina might yell at her if Nadia told her she wanted another snappy. Wellesley stood beside me as we waited for the train, so I asked, "Do you have another tour this afternoon?" "No, I'm heading back to my office to work on my other business." "You run 2 businesses?" I asked. "With the cost of living in this place, you've gotta have 2 incomes to live here. Unfortunately, I'm not married, so I have to bring in both of them," she said with a smile. "What's your other business?" "Household helper. It's more of a resource for people looking for a gardener or a house cleaner. We've got some handymen, too, for small remodeling jobs. If someone wants to update their bathroom, and believe me, there's a lot of that going on around here with people buying older homes for the inside the Beltway location and fixing them up. But they don't want to pay a contractor. I've got tile guys, plumbers, and someone who can hang cabinets, all with references and a record of actually showing up for work." "Wow, your clients must love that," I said. A new group of people arrived on the platform, led by 2 women, both in suits and heels, a marked contrast to the usual tourist uniform of t-shirts and shorts. The shorter woman, in a navy suit, lugged a load of equipment, including a video camera with the name of a local news station on the side. She extended the legs of a tripod and said nervously, "This look okay? I'll set up as close to the tracks as I can, all right?" The other, taller woman wore a cream suit that complemented her blonde hair twisted up in a chignon. She stalked over to the edge of the platform and positioned herself in front of the camera while dialing her cell phone. She pressed the phone to her ear, then barked, "Speak up, the connection's bad." After a few seconds, she said, "You're cutting in and out. Call me back in 15 minutes. We should be done here by then." Frowning, she ended the call, pulled off a lanyard with an ID tag dangling from it, and tossed the lanyard and the phone at a man standing off to the side. It's funny how group dynamics play out, even in impromptu groups, like random people waiting for a train. I realized the news camera had the attention of everyone on the platform, including the kids at the far end. Since I'd just had some less than pleasant encounters with the media, I was glad the camera wasn't focused on me. The reporter threaded a small microphone under the blonde woman's collar and stepped back. "Okay, we're ready." A bright light attached to the camera clicked on, and, just as quickly, a smile lit the woman's face, replacing her frown. The reporter said, "Miss Archer, tell us why the Women's Safety Initiative is so crucial." "We're all concerned about safety. Our nation's security has been our top priority recently, but we can't overlook individual safety, especially for women. Women must be safe in their homes, at work, and on public transportation, like the metro. That's why the Women's Advancement Center has worked closely with Senators McKay and—" There was a burst of noise from the top of the escalator, and we all turned to look. Another group of teenagers, this time wearing dark blue shirts, flooded down the escalator in a gush of chatter and the flutter of miniskirts. I noticed the lights in the floor of the platform near the edge of the track flicker on and off, a signal the train was arriving. Miss Archer snapped at the man holding her phone. "Tell them to keep it down. We're recording." But her voice was overpowered by a high-pitched shout from a girl in a blue t-shirt. "Here comes one! We can make it if we hurry!" The train sped into the station, and a whoosh of air swept across the platform, stirring my hair, as a scream rang out. I thought it was one of the teenagers horsing around, but then little waves of panic rippled across the platform. People started shouting. Someone yelled, "Call 911!" Suddenly we were pushed forward. "What happened? What's wrong?" A few people pushed back, fighting against the surging tide. The noise level on the platform swelled. "An accident!" I heard someone crying. "Horrible! Can you believe?" The reporter disconnected the camera from the tripod, yanked the microphone off the other woman, and pushed into the fray.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?